Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're objectively unpacking some really fascinating commentary from YouTube host Jedediah Bila. She recently put out this viral analysis that zeroes in on modern entitlement and personal responsibility. Now, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you gotta admit, her critiques have sparked some intense debate online. So what we're gonna do today is break down exactly what she's arguing using her own source material to see what all the fuss is about. To wrap our heads around her overall worldview, we're going to look at 4 specific areas. First up, modern dating and age. Second, marriage and finding oneself. Third, we'll look at the WNBA salary debate. And finally, number 4, her views on personal responsibility. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Modern dating and age. Let's talk about dating expectations.
The source material actually kicks off with Bila reacting to a pretty viral video. In it, there's this attractive woman who is just highly upset that men aren't approaching her or buying her drinks at a bar. The woman's complaining that men should, just step up and buy a drink. Well, Bila uses this clip as a total launching pad for her main thesis on dating entitlement. Because instead of sympathizing with the woman, Bila just bluntly responds, "Guys are tired of you."
And man, this perfectly highlights Billa's core argument. On one side, you've got the expectation, right? Women believing that just dressing up guarantees free drinks and immediate attention. But on the flip side is what Bila argues is the new reality. She says men are viewing this whole dating culture as purely transactional, and because of that, they're just withdrawing completely. So rather than playing along, she observes that guys are now choosing to just sit back with their own drinks, entirely opting out of the game, and basically just watching the drama unfold.
Moving on, she analyzes another clip of a 30-year-old single woman who is expressing a lot of anxiety about her dating life. Here, Bila outlines a really strict chronological argument. She argues that in their 20s, women often just don't prioritize finding a partner. Then, by 25, some friends start getting married. By 30, a real panic sets in because those social circles are shifting to quiet nights in. And then, by 32 or 33, Bila argues that the only people left hanging out at the late-night clubs are the folks she calls troublemakers. Now, it's a super rigid timeline for sure, but it really underscores her belief that delaying settling down leads straight to this kind of social isolation.
Okay, so looking at a third dating clip, the host critiques a woman who actually scoffs at receiving a like on a dating app from a blue-collar worker, specifically a man she kind of mockingly refers to as Charles the Plumber. Well, Bimasa passionately defends these blue-collar workers. She literally calls the degradation of tradesmen vile. She points out this glaring disconnect between perceived social status and actual value. I mean, think about it. These men often run incredibly successful businesses, sometimes out-earning white-collar workers with salaries upward of $200,000. Plus, they bring highly practical skills to a household which saves massive amounts of money that would otherwise go to outsourced labor. To Bimasa, rejecting a totally capable guy based purely on professional elitism, that is the absolute height of entitlement.
All right. Moving on to Section 2, marriage and finding oneself. Let's look at internal dissatisfaction.
The video then shifts to analyze a clip from a 32-year-old mother of 3. Now, this woman admits online that she wants to divorce her husband of 10 years. But here is the catch. She openly admits her husband is loyal, hardworking, and an amazing father. So, what's her reason for wanting a divorce? She feels like she just can't be herself with him, while at the exact same time admitting she doesn't actually know who she is.
Bila actually coins a highly specific term for this archetype. She calls her the never going to please her girl. Basically, Bila argues that this type of woman suffers from an internal lack of fulfillment that literally no external factor can fix. She notes that you could hand a woman like this the entire Earth, and she'd probably turn around and ask for Saturn. The really crucial point here is that Bila doesn't view this as a marital failure at all, but rather as deep-seated personal entitlement. It's a stark reminder of how internal expectations can severely impact real-world relationships, sometimes leading someone to wreck a totally stable family simply because they're perpetually chasing that greener grass of self-discovery.
So, this brings us to a really fascinating pivot in the source material. We've spent time looking at personal relationships, right? But how does this perceived entitlement translate into the professional and economic sphere? Specifically, is a given industry driven by cold, hard business realities, or is it driven by social movements? Which leads us nicely into Section 3, the WNBA salary debate. It's economics versus entitlement.
Here, we see Bila push back, and push back hard, against viral campaigns featuring WNBA players like Caitlin Clark, where fans are demanding NBA-level salaries. You know the ones, the shirts reading, "We deserve NBA money"? Well, those get heavily scrutinized by the host.
And the absolutely crucial point in her argument is this staggering figure, $50 million. That is the reported annual financial loss of the WNBA, and Bila uses this exact number to anchor her entire economic argument regarding pay parity.
Now, Bilala's methodology here is really interesting because she strips away the gender politics entirely, framing the wage gap strictly as a basic business reality. She argues that the NBA has high audience demand, massive profitability, and salaries that are driven directly by ticket sales. In contrast, she points out that the WNBA currently has lower demand, operates $50 million in the red, and, in her view at least, is only kept afloat by PC culture rather than actual market economics. Her point is pretty simple. You literally cannot demand a raise from a business that doesn't generate a profit, regardless of your gender.
So, it begs the question, who is to blame when the money runs out? Asking who's ultimately responsible for our financial realities perfectly sets up Bilala's final, and honestly, perhaps her most intense critique.
Let's head into Section 4, Views on Personal Responsibility and Government Assistance.
For this section, the host analyzes a viral video from a father of 5, and this guy is absolutely outraged because his monthly food stamps were slashed by the Trump administration. They went from $2,800 all the way down to just $350.
In the clip, the man complains heavily about this massive cut. He explicitly states that he shouldn't be forced to go work 50 or 60 hours a week just to pay the bills, because he just wants to sit at home and spend time with the 5 children he chose to have. He expresses genuine anger that the government expects him to work instead of, fully supporting his lifestyle.
Well, Bila uses this to aggressively redefine the modern buzzword toxic masculinity. While a lot of people use that term to describe aggressive behavior, Bila states impartially that this video represents true toxic masculinity, the complete abandonment of financial and personal responsibility for one's own children. In her eyes, demanding that other hardworking taxpayers fund your life choices while you flat-out refuse to work is the ultimate loss of manhood. She holds this man entirely accountable for his choices, which brings her whole theme of anti-entitlement right back full circle. As we wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. Through the lenses of dating, marriage, sports economics, and government aid, Jedediah Bila paints a picture of a culture that's really struggling with what is owed versus what is actually earned. So, we have to ask you, does true societal accountability begin exactly where personal entitlement ends? Thanks so much for exploring this source material with me today. Let us know what you think.